What I'm going to do in this video is to show, to talk about this fonts class that I created. And this fonts class, what I'm going to do is show how to use this fonts class along with the message overlay class that I presented in the previous note here. And the purpose of the fonts class is just to create a central place to store the fonts. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to go through and show that to you. And so let's go ahead and what I'm going to do is insert this code and modify it slightly into the example that we have. And let's go into the desktop here, and it's called the message overlay example. Let's start that up. And this is a previous example where we run this thing and we press a key and then we get the some text on the screen. So with the fonts class, what we do is we create a class called fonts. And then just paste that code in there, and the namespace is going to be found here, message overlay example. Modify that and paste that in there. So it's pretty straightforward. Actually, this is static class, so I'm going to just add that there. That's because this class only contains static member variables, as you can see here. These member variables are static and static functions. So we don't create instances of the class. In fact, another thing that we can do to guarantee that would to make a private constructor. Probably that's a good idea. Let's go ahead and create a private constructor, and nobody on the outside can create an instance of us. And this fonts class, it needs to be initialized. So when you have access to the content manager, you should call a init on that. We verify that the content manager is not null with this assert function. And then what we do with the content manager is we call load, parameterized by this sprite font class, and we specify the sprite fonts that we want to load. And we store those in these private member variables. And if someone wants to use one of those fonts, they just access it through these static public properties. And so it's a this is a simple class. It's not a big deal, but it does give us one way to keep fonts out of the way and tucked away in this one static class. So what we're going to need to do, actually, we have one of these fonts. We're going to have to create another one. I think I can copy that. Let's try that. I've never done that before. Let me see if I can copy that. I copied that, and then can I paste it? Try that. There it is. And let's change this to Arial 10. That's the example I have. Let's go ahead and make sure that that is in fact 10 points. It's the same font that we were using before, which is Arial. Alright, that's done. And let's see how we're going to use this. We need to remember we have to call init here. So let's do that in the right place. And when we call init, we pass in this content manager. Let's see, where do we get the content manager? We get it in that load content method. Let's find that. Here we're in the game class. And as you can see, game 1, we extend game. And here's initialize. After initialize, load content is called. Here when this is where we have where we were getting our sprite font before. It's a good place to replace this. So we're going to do fonts dot init, and we're going to pass in the content manager, which is just content. It's a property in the parent class. So we're just going to reference the content manager with that property name. See, I'll just hover over that. That's content manager. That's the data type. And now this message overlay, we have to pass in the sprite font that we want. So let's go ahead and pass in from the fonts class that font called Arial 14. We'll start with Arial 14. Let's see if that builds. It failed. Let's figure out what's going on here. And some error there. Private fonts. Oh, it's static. So we don't have to worry about people creating an instance of the class, because in C# you're allowed to declare a class as static, so we can't in fact declare that private. Alright, so it built. Let's run it. And let's test what we had before. That's the 14 points. Let's go ahead and modify that. Here's the game 1. Let's set that to 10. Now we have the smaller font. That's basically how to use the font class.